Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you how to open the hood. This latch flips up like that, and this pulls out, and same thing on the other side. Walk around the truck, make it a little more interesting. This flips up, and you sort of unlatch it from here like that, and pull it back, and then you just lift from the side. You can do it with one hand even. And one thing to remember is this safety latch has to be flipped forward, and it grasps this piston here to close the hood. So just make sure that you flip this guy towards you before you close the hood, otherwise it's just not going to close. Okay, probably literally the most important part is the oil, which is right here. To check this, you twist this way to open it, pull it out like this, and you just take a look at the oil level, and we can see on the other side it says max fill. If I can get it to focus, well, I'll just read it because I can't get it to, okay, there we go. Max fill, it's right there. It's almost entirely full. It's about time for me to get an oil change, so it's just a hair below. Anyway, just put it, same thing to put it back. Goes right back in there, and you push it down, twist, and then you twist clockwise to lock it. Now, to check the coolant level is on the passenger side of the truck. I was on the driver's side. I just put some coolant in this morning, and as you can see, it's a little over full, which is okay because there's actually extra room. Anyway, that's not important. This is actually the power steering fluid right here. You can't really, this right here is the power steering fluid. You can't really see. I cleaned it off a little bit, but you still really can't see with this, the way this camera is or whatever. But it's actually at the full level. You probably can't tell the difference, but if you were looking at it with your naked eye and not through a camera, you would be able to see it's, the level's like right there. Also, to fill the engine oil is right here. Okay, for the belts, I'm going to go to the passenger side. Okay, this is the alternator and the accessory belts. This is, well, that one is the air conditioner. This is the main fan belt here, this big thick one. And it also has the air compressor running off of it, which is this one here with the two things. I'm 99% sure that's the air compressor. Yeah, it definitely is. Just for the record, none of these belts are hoses. None of the belts are cracked or broken. None of the hoses are broken or leaking. This here is just from where I spilled a little coolant earlier today. Okay, this thing right here is the actual steering box, and this whole thing here is the steering linkage, and it goes right up to the steering wheel, and it's not cracked, bent, broken. I'm pretty sure it doesn't leak. Well, the steering box could theoretically leak. Anyway, it's definitely not leaking. this truck has leaf springs. This thing here, all the way back to there is the leaf spring, and this is the shock. And the leaf springs are of course not cracked, bent, or broken. The spring mounts are these things here, and this part right here, and this part right here. This, of course, well, this is the shock absorber here, the shock absorber mount here and there. Next, you're going to want to check the rims. You just want to make sure they're not cracked or anything. If I had my gloves on, I would check the tightness of the lug nuts to make sure they're all tight. They are all tight. I'm 100% sure because I checked earlier. This guy right here is what's called the hub oil seal, and you'll almost never have to mess with that, but that's where it is right there, the hub oil seal right in the center. Next, we'll look at the tires. These are fairly new tires. You can visibly see the tread depth is more than 2/32 or whatever it needs to be. There's no uneven wear. I'm not sure what the letter I is for. I'll let you take care of that. And I already mentioned the lug nuts. Next, I'll move on to the brakes. This is the brake chamber here, this thing that looks kind of like a drum. And there's actually, there's no slack adjuster because this is actually disc brakes. I'm going to kind of get wonky with the camera here. This is the brake caliper here, and this underneath it there, if you can see that, that is the brake rotor. And then, I'm hoping I can do this right, that piece underneath there that connects to the rotor is the brake shoe, and that's the piece that wears out. I'm gonna have to go back and look because I can't actually get down there. Well, yeah, wait a minute. Yeah, that's the brake shoe. Next, I'm going to walk back here and we're going to look at the rear rims. The rear rims, you just want to make sure they're not cracked or anything. Again, I would check the lugs, but I don't have my gloves on. Excuse me. I'm going to check the axle seal, which is this thing here in the center. Check the tires, which visibly, you can obviously tell they have plenty of tread. I'm going to make sure there's no uneven wear, and of course there's not. And there again, I don't know what the I stands for. I guess I'm assuming you do. Check the lug nuts, already said. Spacers, there's no actual spacer in between there. Now we're going to take a look at the rear suspension. You can see like half of a leaf spring here, sort of a thing. It's almost like there's two half leaf springs. This is the leaf spring mount here, and this is the suspension for the airbag suspension. And right behind there is we have another shock absorber, and same thing on the rearmost axle. There's another leaf spring, which of course is this thing here. The leaf spring mounts, of course, here and here, and of course, on the front axle, it's right there. It's the mount, the front mount, and of course another airbag. And another shock absorber. Okay, now I'm going to show you what the torsion bar is. This right here, well, let me get the camera right. This right here is the torsion bar, and it's connected to, this is actually the rearmost axle. Well, yeah. And of course this is the inside part of the shock absorber here. Okay, this right behind the leaf spring is the brake chamber, and they have fully automatic slack adjusters. Make sure the hoses and linings are not cracked, broken, or leaking. This here, this entire circular thing is the brake drum, and that inner part, that kind of lining that lines that semicircular part, is actually your brake lining, and that lining has to be at least a ½ inch thick. These are the door mirrors. You want to make sure they're clean, not cracked or broken, free of debris. And I'm just going to go ahead and go back to the fuel tanks. This is the fuel tank here. It looks a little dirty because I spilled diesel all the many times I got fuel. So you want to check both fuel tanks on this side, which is the driver's side, and this is the passenger side. You're going to make sure the tanks are not leaking. This is the front axle right here. This part, this is the front axle. That thing in between the two axles is the drive shaft. And if we look through, this is the catwalk right here. If you look kind of through the catwalk, there's the other part of the drive shaft. You want to make sure it's not cracked or bent. Also underneath here is the exhaust system. You can see the tip of the exhaust right there through the snow chains. Let me see if I'm trying to get a better view here. We'll go like this. That's the exhaust right there. And the frame, this thing here is the frame, all the way through there, all the way up to the engine compartment it goes on both sides. That's the other part of the frame there. And then this is one of the frame cross members here, just under the catwalk. Okay, here again, of course, is the catwalk. These little things here, and also, no, these right here are the mounting bolts for the catwalk. I'm gonna make sure they're good. Looks like there's 2 for each piece of the catwalk. There on the passenger side, and there on the driver's side. This is the 5th wheel. This here is the 5th wheel release arm and latch. Wait, yeah. This thing here is this whole thing is like the 5th wheel platform with the holes in it and everything. And these are the locking pins right here, and also on the other side, this is the other locking pin here, right there. And we're going to look at this trailer's air lines and electrical lines here. And these cross members here can't have more than 3 of these cross members missing, if memory serves me correctly. And I've literally, and I know I've told you this before, but I've literally never seen one missing in all the time that I've been working. And this is like a super old trailer, and it's still got all of them. I'm going to make sure and, of course, check all the lights. This reflector tape has trying to get a good view here. Yeah, this reflector tape here has to be evenly spaced down the trailer. I have seen trailers, just as a side note, that literally have it all the way down. I'm going to go back to the rear tandem here, show you the tandem release. This guy right here is the tandem release. Some of them are slightly different, but this handle right here, this is the tandem release, and these tandem bolts here, and there's also one back here, have to be locked in place. Now I'm going to go back to the rear of the trailer. I'm going to check all the lights, the reflector tape. Here, there's actually a piece missing there. This is an old trailer, just pretend it's there. And then you have the top corner reflector tape. It has to be 90 degrees here and 90 degrees there. This right here and this right here. And the doors, these door latches here, the lifts and the lift ties. Make sure none of it's cracked, bent, or broken. Now I'm going to do the rear wheels. So, rear wheels not cracked, bent, broken, or any crazy welding. There again, don't have my gloves on, but all the lug nuts are tight. The tires have more than 2/32 tread. There's no uneven wear. There shouldn't be any spacers. There's no spacers. The rear suspension. This is the rear leaf spring mount right here, and then if we look deeper, there's the leaf spring there, and the middle part, the middle mount there. And let's just go all the way up under here. Oh yeah, we can see it much better. There's the middle leaf spring mount there, and this is the rear leaf spring mount. Kind of turning around there so you can see it, hopefully. This is the rear axle, and these brakes have definitely seen better days, but we are going to pre-trip them anyway. So these are the rear brakes. This is the brake drum here. That's the brake lining or brake caliper, and of course it's got plenty of tread on it. Looks like they freaking replaced the brakes and then put this trailer like out of service or something. I don't even know. These are the brake chambers and hoses here. This right here is actually the slack adjuster. You could actually adjust this slack adjuster here, but these are automatic. It adjusts inside the brake chamber. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but that's the automatic part. But if you did need to adjust it, there's this thing here. I mean, the old ones. Anyway, I guess that's not important. But that's the actual adjuster right there. But this thing's the chamber here. And let's see, what else? Torsion bars. That, let me point to it. This right here is the torsion bar. And there are no shocks on this one. It's just the leaf springs. Another quick thing I do want to explain about the fifth wheel is, you see, let me see if I can get it from a better angle. I'm going to try not to touch it because this thing is like super greasy and nasty, but this part right here closes when you bump the kingpin into that right there. That pushes in and releases this and this around the kingpin. Now let's go. I actually forgot about the this whole thing here. This is the front of a trailer. This is the base plate. This is called the base plate. That, of course, is the kingpin. And this whole thing is the headboard. And these are your glide hands, your electrical